Well, I mean, it is true that Mark Butler's moving on. He's moving to health and aged care. Chris Bowen will be taking on environment and climate change. I think we can see from that he's taking one for the team. He's taking one for Albanese because how high profile is health at the moment as an opposition portfolio? So I can tell you what else I know about this reshuffle that will be announced on the weekend. Shadow Treasurer Jim Chalmers staying where he is. Yep. But I think there are questions around the positions or moving. I think Richard Marles, Penny Wong, maybe even Kristina Keneally, maybe even Tanya Plibersek, which is interesting because Albanese's approach, as I understand it, is that if you've been in a shadow portfolio only since the election, you won't be moving in this reshuffle. But if you have had a shadow portfolio prior to that, as Mark Butler had with climate change, there'll be a lot of movement. And I think you can put Plibersek, Marles and Wong in those categories. Certainly the people I talk to haven't been denying that those three will be changing portfolios. Now, this is pretty interesting, Peter, in this sense. Late last year, Anthony Albanese was wanting to look at what the government did. They did a minimal reshuffle and he was going to follow suit. My belief is that late last year, when we were reporting on this, Anthony Albanese's intention was for a minimalist reshuffle. And his intention, his clear intention stated to several people, and even in the media, I think, was that Mark Butler would be staying where he is. So is it a last roll of the dice? Has he decided that he has to be bold because his leadership's coming under pressure? I think you can certainly read it that way. But it's interesting too, on climate change, Joel Fitzgibbon's already been out there this morning saying, well, it's not just a change of jockey, you've got to change on policy. Now, have a listen to him here from earlier in the week, this interview we ran on Sunday Agenda, where I press him on whether Labor will come up with a medium-term climate change target, and he can't really answer. Will you have a medium-term climate change target, not just the 2050 target?
Well, there again, a lot will happen this year. One of the things that
Does that mean yes?
No. What it means is that you announce one policy, not a policy in 2019, which then changes in 2020, which changes in 2021.
We spoke about this last year.
Yeah,
I accept your argument on that.
And I was right.
But will you have a medium... This is a pretty simple yes or no question, right? Will you have a medium-term target before the election?
And I was right to do so, to not preempt.
Getting his arm bent by people like Joel Fitzgibbon at the moment?
Yeah, well, made a few calls this morning to see if that's the case. If it is, it's not directly. It's more through the media commentary. I don't think there's any deal here. I don't think he sat down with Joel and the AWU or whoever else and sorted out a deal. I think he's just sort of sniffed the wind, smelt the wind on it.
Yeah.
Albanese's view, as I understand it, is regardless of how good a job he might think Mark Butler has done in that portfolio, he sees Butler as a potential distraction. In other words, Butler was the guy who went to the election, of course, with a 45% target by 2030. The next election campaign, will it be all about that? All about his spokesman rather than the policy because of the old policy. So that's why he's taking this move. It still is interesting, though, given last year he seemed determined to have Butler where he was. There's another element to this, perhaps. What Joel Fitzgibbon made his position difficult, I think Albanese would argue, last year by demanding Butler be moved because he couldn't be seen to be moving to Joel's request. So that's one of the reasons the reshuffle's taken a bit of time as well. But also, frankly, Albanese a couple of weeks ago was in a car crash, gave him a bit of a jolt, frankly. I think he's decided to come out swinging this year. We've got Scott Morrison at the National Press Club on Monday. He'll be no doubt outlining some form of policy agenda, probably talking about gas and the like and manufacturing again. The following week, Albanese will give a speech in Brisbane where he will come out with some more policy. Many would say not before time.
So it's a straight swap for Butler and Bowen there.
It is.
And then you talked about Penny Wong, Richard Marles. Richard Marles, who was booked for an interview on the show today and is not here. So
come on, Richard, what are you doing?
No guessing why he's not here today, because there's a lot of talk about that. So Marles and Wong looks as though they're heading towards some domestic portfolios. Is there any inkling as to what that might be?
Well, what's has been put to me, you've heard Scott Morrison talk about jobs, jobs, jobs. Albanese's going to paint this reshuffle as being about jobs. So maybe Marles moves into employment, for example. I mean, if you've got a shadow treasurer who's not your deputy, do you move your deputy leader into employment?
So this is the
most... Well, I don't know. But I do know that potentially not, if you build it up some sort of super employment portfolio. I mean, defence is a bit in the background, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm sure Penny wants to hang on to foreign affairs, but that doesn't look like it'll be happening.
Yeah.
I guess you could move Marles to foreign affairs. But I think it would make sense to put your deputy in employment if you're saying employment is the most important thing. I don't think there is any doubt, though, that Chris Bowen's kind of taking one for the team here, isn't he? I mean, health is a plum sort of portfolio at the moment, and he's saying to get the controversy out of climate change and the environment, he'll take that job. But the other interesting thing, obviously, that moves from the left faction to the right faction. Will that lead to a different approach on the sort of salesmanship of it? What's been put to me is they'll keep the same sort of policy. So what difference does it actually make? Is it just to calm some of the troops, prevent that sort of distraction that I just spoke about? Any which way you look at it, in question time next week, I expect the government to be making hay with this Butler-Bowen move, that's for sure.